Welcome to course data analysis and visualization using Microsoft Excel. We are into week 8 and in this week we are covering advanced pivot table functions, Power Pivot tools. Recap for the last session what we have done in the last week 7. We have covered new functions and their uses. New functions are basically the functions that are provided or given by Microsoft Excel only in the latest version only like Microsoft 365. Then we have covered the use of array functions. In the array functions we have the flexibility or the ability to provide or pass range of values as an argument, and in this way we can entirely work on entire column or entire row. Then we learned about how we can import data using Power Query. We made the connection relationships among the files among the different Excel sheets using the Power Query. We learned about the data transformation only using Power Query. And now in this week, what we are covering advanced pivot table functions, like we will cover fields, items, sets, and then we will come to pivot charts, slices and timeline. We will learn in the more detail now, grouping and the ungrouping, and there is an important function get pivot data. After that we will jump to Power Pivot tools. There we will learn about introduction to Excel Power Pivot, what we can do with the more tables and relationships, and then how we can create the data models, and then we will come to the KPIs, learning objectives for this week. By the end of this session, you will be able to understand the advanced functions of pivot tables, how you can add pivot charts, slices, timelines in your workbook. We will learn about Power Pivot and data models and how we can use the relationships. So let's come and start the first topic, advanced pivot table functions. First, we have the field, items, and sets. Calculated fields. What we can do with the calculated fields? We can create formulas with the pivot table fields. We have already covered how we can make pivot table into Microsoft Excel. Now in this week, we are learning how we can have our own field into pivot table, that is calculated field. And then we will come to the calculated item as well. There we will learn about creating formulas using items in one field. Here one screenshot you can see we have the pivot table analyze. So this is enabled only when we have the pivot table with us in the workbook, and after that we just need to go to this pivot table analyze, and then we have this fields, items, and sets. There we can see calculated field and calculated item is given, and depending on that or choosing or your requirement of your application project, you can go for both. You can pick any one as well. You can go for the calculated field and the calculated item. So what we can do with this calculated field and calculated item, we can actually make our own field or make our own item irrespective of the table data. So this is kind of that data that you don't want to do the changes into the main data. You just want to keep it into the pivot table. So let's try with the hands-on. We will understand what we can do with that. So let me open my folder first. So I'll come to my file, and there we can see what we can do with this calculated field. So we will be working on are the same sample, that is financial sample. This data set we already worked on. So let's see that in the table what we have. We have different columns like segment, country, product, discount band, unit sold, manufacturing, sales price, gross sales, discount, sales, COGS, profit, date, month number, month name, and year. We have, and approximately we have somewhere 700 records in this table. So what I'll do to work on this calculated field on and calculated item, first I'll have the pivot table with me. So let me click on insert and then pivot table from table and range. So this by default, this range will be selected. That is for the financials. So where you want to have the pivot table, where you want to place this table. So I want to have it into the new worksheet. I'll click on this new worksheet. Now I have the option here for the rows and the column that you want to choose for this particular pivot table. But right now what I'll do, I'll first have the country. So by default country has gone into the rows part. Then for the second column what I'll take, let me take any other field now. I'll take profit now. So let me look for the profit. Profit is also selected. You can see here sum of profit is visible now. In the countries, we have different countries, that is Canada, France, Germany, Mexico, and United States of America. For respective of different profit, it has calculated the sum of individual profit, and then it is displaying us the result. The third field I'm selecting here, gross sales. So let me look for the gross sales. This is my gross sales here. Again, what we have in the rows, we have the country. In the values, we have sum of profits and sum of gross sales. I'm not changing anything, so I'm just going with the default values here, not to this data we are seeing here. This is the part, or this is referred from the main data only. Now let me come to the calculated field and let's understand. Once I have this pivot table with me, this pivot table analyzer is enabled. Here you can see different options which we already covered when we were doing the pivot table. That time we talked about we can change the name of the pivot table. We can look for the active fields over there, and in slicer and timeline we will be covering in few minutes in more detail. Then we can refresh the data source as well. Now here in the field item, this calculation part, you can see this belongs to that data that you don't want to include into the main data, but you want to keep into the pivot table. So let me cover this calculated field once, then we will come to calculated item. This calculated item will be enabled only when I have an item here, like I'm selecting this a group, and then you can see this calculated item is enabled. Now let me have one more value here. I'll go back to my pivot, and this is my fields and item. There I'll select the calculated field. Now one name is provided here. Let me take a condition or take a criteria where I want to calculate the tax depending on the gross sales for a different country or maybe for everyone. So this is based on the gross sales, we are applying some kind of tax here. And this data, I don't want to include it on in the main data. I just want to keep it in the my pivot table with the group, with the particular group or with the pivot table data. So what I'll be writing, I am putting my name here. The name is text here. This name text is for a new column that I want to insert. And again, I'm repeating that this field we are not basically putting into the main data. We are keeping it only in the pivot table. In the pivot table, we want to put this data. That's why we are having this data here. And now I have this formula here. There you can actually insert the formulas. Before that, there is a list of fields are visible here. So it is showing you all the fields that are part of the main data. So from where this pivot table has been formed. So you can see here segment, country, product, discount, band, unit sold, manufacturing price, sale price, gross sales, discount, sales, COGS, profit, date, month number, month name, year. You can see here, and even if we see the order, let me come back. So in the second last column is month name. So I'll go back to my main data. In the main data as well, I have this, the same order of the columns has been shown in this field also. So you can see here the second last column is the month name. So it is showing the same order. I'll come back to my pivot table analyze part. Here we will click on the calculated field. So I'll put another name now. This time let me see here. The text should not be part. So let me see any name exists like this. No, it does not exist. So I'll put a name here, that is text. Text is the new field's name which I want to insert into my table with respect to pivot table data. Now in the formula, what I can do, let me write here for now 100. I'm writing here 100, and after that, I'll click on the add. So basically I'm adding a new column here. I'll click on add. So once this add thing is done, you just look for the same column here. You can see here text is there. So what I'll do, by clicking on text, and then I'll come to insert field, and I'll click on OK this time. So you can see here sum of text is shown. This field is there, and what value we have? We have the value as 100. How this 100 has come up? Let me go back to this calculated field, and in the text what we have put the value as 100, and that is why it is coming as the 100 value. So let me delete this for now, or before that what I can do, I can make a new column. Now let's make a new column or a new field depending on another column's value. So let me take here text 1. So this is my text 1 now, and how I am calculating this text. So I'll be clicking on gross sales for now. So after clicking on gross sales, my cursor is here. My cursor is in the formula after the equals to, and then I'm clicking on this gross sales, and I'll click on insert field. You can see this gross sales is inserted into the formula after the equals to sign. After that, I'll put multiplication of, let me take here 0.2. So what I want to do, I want to create a new field. The name should for that field should be text1 and the value should be multiplication of the gross sales of the 0.2. After that, I'll click on add. Add is done. I'll go back to this text1 and click on OK. So you can see here sum of text1 is provided and this is the 0.2 multiplication value for the gross sale. So you can make your own field by assigning your own values as well, or you can have a value depending on any other column as well. So let me take another value here. I'll go back to my pivot table, analyze, field items, calculated items, and then let me make text 2, and this text 2 is dependent on, so let me take the formula as, now I am multiplying this profit. I'll click on profit and I'll give 0.3 of the profit. I'll click on add. So let me go back to the text 2 and click on OK. So I have the sum of text 2 as well. Now if I go to the main data, this data is not reflected here. This is only part of the pivot table. This is only included into the pivot table where we can have the calculated field, as it is clear from the name also that this calculated field are those fields which you want to create depending on your condition, but you don't want to add it to the main data, that you can actually have that data into your pivot table only, and this is not reflected anywhere else and it is not disturbing your main data as well. So whatever is your condition, accordingly you can pick and you can decide the formula how you want. In fact, let's take another example now. So what we are doing, we are going to pivot table, analyze, clicking on the calculations, field items insert, click on calculated items. So this time I am making a text 3. This is my text 3 now, and this time what we are choosing, we are choosing a column which is not part of pivot table. So let me take here, now I am taking unit sold. So let me take a sale price here. So we are taking a sale price. Price is not part of pivot table. So I want to insert that into the formula. So I click on the sale price and insert field. Sale price you can see here. So let me make 0.1 for the sale price and click on the add. And after that, we have the text 3 with us. Let me click on the OK. So you can see sum of text 3 as well. So you can have the data from entire table as well, and accordingly you can calculate the new field, and this is part of pivot table. Now after completing this calculated field, we have the calculated item as well. So let's see what we can do with the calculated item now. To enable this calculated item, I need to go to the group data. So this is my group data here. I'll click on, now you can see this calculated item is enabled now. Now I'll click on this calculated item. So now you have some other parts also. What other parts? You have same kind of fields as well. And apart from fields, you have the items as well. So items you can see here in the fields country. If I click on the segment is not part of here. In the country, you can see you have Canada, France, Germany, Mexico, United States of America. Each is the part of, each is relevant to a group. If I go to product is not here. So if I go to gross sales is not also part of a group. So what I'll do, I'll go to this country and I can see the different items options as well. So as we have created a field here, a calculated field, in the same manner, we can create a calculated item as well. And to create a calculated item, let me take another field here, another name we can say here. Let me make it O text. This is my O text 1. I'll make into the formula. What I'll choose now? Let me choose this Canada. Let me choose this Canada from the item. This is inserted here, and I'll multiply. I want to multiply with this 2. And after that, in the same manner as we inserted the calculated field, we will calculate we will have the calculated item as well. I'll click on add part here. Now once you have clicked on add, I can look for that particular part where, now I don't need to look it into the fields part, I need to look into the items part. So where we have this item, we have into the country. Now into the country field section, you have the item, that is O text 1. If you click on this O text 1, you can see here this O text 1 is inserted into the row part, and that is the double times or twice of the Canada. Sum of profit, sum of gross sales, sum of tax 1, sum of tax 2, sum of tax 3. So in this pivot table, we have the calculated field as well. We have the calculated item as well. So let me check this value. So what can I do? Let me divide this value. I'll choose this value and I'll divide it by 2. So you can see here, this is the value equals to the Canada value. So what it is doing? It is doing the multiplication by 2 as we have given in the formula. So let me try for another fields as well. I'll go back to, let me enable this by going into the group. I'll go to the calculated item. So let me write here O takes 2. So this is for another country and this is my France. France I am going to insert here. France you can see, let me multiply it with 3 here and clicking on the add. Let me add one more part now. I'll go back to the country. Now this is this time what we are creating. O takes 3 and instead of the France, I'll pick the Germany here. Germany is there and I want to multiply it by 4. I'll click on add here. Then let me take again country here and I'll make O takes 4 now. And in the instead of Germany, I'll come to the Mexico now. This is the next country. Mexico and we are going to multiply Mexico by 5. Click on add. So now in the country, what you have in the country, let me click on that. We have O takes 1, O takes 2, O takes 3, O takes 4. So now let me insert O takes 2 here. Before that, I need to select a particular value. Now you can see here. See, now you have O takes 1, O takes 2, O takes 3 and O takes 4. You entirely have what you have covered here. You have the inserted field as well. What inserted fields we have added? We have added sum of text. This was with the value only. Then we have added sum of text 1. Then we have with sum of text 2, sum of text 3. And in the inserted item, what we have added O takes 1. This was the multiplied value of the Canada by 2. In the O takes 2, we again have the value multiplied by 3. In the O takes 3, we have again the value of multiplied by 4 for the Germany. And O takes 4, again we have the value for the Mexico multiplied by 4. So in this way, we have the inserted row as well, inserted items as well. Now let's come to another option for the calculation part. This is the solve part. What we can do in the solve part? So you can see here in the solve part, you can see O takes 1, O takes 2, O takes 3, O takes 4. So let me move it up. So if I move it up, O takes 4. So this is now O takes 1. The order is O takes 1, O takes 2, O takes 4, O takes 3. Let me close here and if I refresh here and I'll go to the solve order. So here you can see the order has been moved here. And similarly, I can move it to down. Now, if the value in a pivot table cell is affected by 2 or more calculated items, the value is determined by the last formula in the solve order. So how the determination takes place? This takes place according to this order. So whenever we have such choices, in that case, we can sort this order and we can solve the order. And according to our formula, we can calculate and go with that flow. And the fourth option, we have the list formulas. In the list formulas, you can actually see what you have. This is the order in which we are calculating the calculated field. First, we are having the text, then text 1, text 2, text 3. After that, we have the calculated item. In the calculated item, we have the O text 1, O text 2, O text 4, and O text 3. This order we have changed. So if you want to have the summary of what you have provided in the calculated item and the calculated field, how you can do that? You just need to go to your table part and then pivot table analyze, and that in the pivot table analyze you have the values for this list formulas where you can list the formulas. And if you want to delete something here, you can delete as well. So if I click on this O text 3 and delete, click on delete and close. Now it is deleted from here. So now only you have O text 1, O text 2, O text 4. And again, if I go to the list formulas, then I will be seeing here only 3 texts here because this O text 3 is already deleted. So you have the summary sheet with you and you can control the order and you can delete the inserted or the calculated field or column with the option available with the solve order. After covering this, what we are more going to cover, we will talk about this filtration part as well. Before that, I'll come to the pivot chart. Pivot chart is a beautiful option available with the Excel. We have already covered this pivot chart before as well. Now we are more focusing on the pivot chart, on the pivot, why we are making the pivot charts with the pivot table. So this is insert a pivot chart tied to the data in this pivot table. You can see now if I go to a normal chart, there you can see this is my normal chart here. This charts are provided. This is again for everything. So here you can see insert a column or a bar chart. So use this chart type to be visually compare values across a few categories. Now let's practice on the pivot chart. So let me take a new data. I will be deleting that. We delete this and let me come to a new data set to make a pivot chart. So here we are only talking about how we can make chart with respect to pivot table. To make that, let me select a different set of tables or columns. We can see I'll click on insert and go to the pivot table. So I'll click on a new worksheet I want to create here. In this new worksheet, what we are going to cover, let me take country here. This is my country. Country I'm selecting in the pivot table. After the country, I'm taking the product. Each product we will be taking. So now you can see here Canada and how different products are listed here. And I'll take the profit. Profit here, everyone is concerned about the profit. And so that is why we are taking here profit only. So business is all about the profit. Here we have taken the profit. So now what I have in the rows, I have the country and the product. In the values, I have the sum of profit. So let's see how we can create a chart depending on this data. In the data set, what we have in the rows, we have the country and the product. In the values, we have the sum of profit. What we want to do? So we want to have a graph or a chart for the profit values for the country as well as for the product. So I'll go to this pivot chart option. This is pivot chart. I'll click on that. Here you can see different kind of charts are visible. So this is templates are given. And we have the column chart, we have the line chart, we have the pie chart, bar chart, area chart, XY scatter, map, stock, surface, radar, tree map, sunburst, histogram, box and whisker, waterfall, funnel, combo. So for each kind of a chart, it is actually showing you a preview as well. So if I click on the column, so you can go with this, and this is again, we have some different categories, that is clustered column, stacked column, 100% stacked column, 3D clustered column, 3D stacked column, 3D 100% stacked column, and 3D column. So you can choose it according to your condition as well. You can go for the line chart as well. In the line chart, you have the different options. So let's explore that. This is line. Then we have the stacked line with us. After that, we have 100% stacked line, line with markers, stacked line with markers, 100% stacked line with markers, and then the 3D line we have. If we go with the bar, and you can see here different kind of stacked bar is there, 100% stacked bar is there, 3D clustered bar is there, 3D stacked bar is there, and 3D 100% stacked bar is there. So let me first come to the line. So let's try what will happen in the case of the line. I'll click on the line chart and come to the OK. So here you can see the chart is visible. In this chart, you can see here we have the Canada, France, Germany, Mexico, United States of America, and we have the different products as well. And this is the profit, how it is moving irrespective of the all the countries. So this was about the line chart. In the line chart only, if I go to this pivot table analyze and click on this chart here, or let me have the data here again in the pivot table analyze. So you in the line chart only, you have another options as well. Let me delete this and let me try a second kind of a pivot chart. I'll go back to this pivot table analyze pivot chart I am having here. In the line, we have a different line as well. So this is a stacked line. Then we have something like this, and you have some pointer values as well. So let me try this pointer value. Now here you can see the pointed kind of value in the chart. So you can actually, if you hover, you can see series total point Canada, Eritrea value is this. So by hovering your mouse, you can see the value it is associated with it, and you can focus on the values which value is given here. So this is all provided with the data. Now this pivot table analyze, let me try any another chart. Now I'll go to a column chart. In the column, I'm selecting this 3D part. I'll click on this OK. This is so simple to do here. So I have for the different products, I have the profit into the chart for the Canada, France, Germany, Mexico, and United States of America. So you can see here sum of profit is given, country, product. Here is there. I can have a value as for the total of the profit as well. So editing, you can of course do it. So let me try any other chart now. I'll go back to this pivot table, analyze in the pivot chart what we have. So let's see for the pie. So this should not be working good with the pie chart, but we will try that. What will happen in the case of the pie chart? So you can see the pie chart has been formed here depending on the country and the product you can see. So let's come to another chart now. Same path we are following. Then we have the bar here. Bar. It is good to go here. In the bar now you can see in the bar chart you have a different set of values here for the profits. Now you can see the movement for each product. Now, if we talk about the United States of America, they have the highest profit for which product? This product you can see here. This product you can see here. So with this chart, it is easy to analyze what we are talking about. Instead of the table, instead of the values, you have a different forms or you have a different set of values. So let me select this column here, and so here you can see here column chart, the column. Now you can analyze here. For Canada, the highest profit is for the product this passive. From country France, the highest profit is for the this again passive. And in the Germany as well, Germany we have a different product that is Velo. In the Mexico we have the different product. This is passive again. And then in the country United States of America as well we have the passive. So from this chart it is easy to understand like how our performance is happening. In fact, you can go for the minimum as well. So for the Mexico, I'll see the minimum profit that is for the value. If I see for the United States of America, that is for the cartera. And similarly, you can do for the different countries as well. But if you have this data set, you need to apply some kind of formula and then you need to see. But from the graph, it is clearly visible. You don't need to do much exertion here or any other extra work you need to do. You just directly can insert the charts here and then you can look for the values, what values you want to provide here or what you values are given here. And similarly, let me change some value and see how it changes here. So let me try if I can make a changes here. So if I, instead of this value in the value, we are talking about the country Canada. This column chart is with me and this chart we are seeing here. Let me have this value here and let me change this value. For this first product, I'm checking it to, we can't change this part of the pivot table. So I cannot make any changes here. This data is reflected from the main data only. This data is reflected only from the main data. So let me try to change something here. I'll go to this table and come to the filtration part, that is data filter. I'll choose only Canada here. This is my Canada, and in the Canada I have the profit here. We are making or we are working on the profit. So I have how many records? I have some I have total 142 records here. You can see the count of that. Instead of all these values, what I'll do, let me make it 100. This is very minimum here, or let me take it 10 lakhs here. 1000, 10,000, 1 lakh and 10 lakh I'm taking here. This is the value here. So let me copy the entire value into this table. We just want to see how this data, if we are changing anything in the data and how this is performed in the pivot table and in the pivot chart. Let me save this and click on the pivot table part. We need to refresh our data. I'll go back to this pivot table, analyze, and then we have this refresh thing, refresh all. So I will be refreshing my data. You can see here the some processing is happening. We are just checking whether this, if we are making any kind of changes in the main data, that changes are reflected somewhere else or not. So you can directly see here. Now for each product, the sum of profit has been increased, and with respect to that, this chart has automatically adjusted all the values here. You can see very minimum because this is in the comparison with these values. So let me make some other changes now. So again, what I'll do, instead of this so much value, let me give a value as 10,000. Now this is my 10,000. So same value I will be copying it to the other products as well for, but this is only for the country Canada we are doing. We just want to see the changes how we are performing. So I'll paste it there. save it here the value, come back to the table part, change the source, or we are basically refreshing the source here. This is a refreshing the data source. Now you can see your output like so we change it for everyone, and that is why we are getting this kind of output. And here you can see for the Canada you have these kind of values here, and this is has not been changed here. So you can see this kind of values are given here now in the main data. So you just made a logic or a structure of a table or a pivot table and the pivot charts. You can continuously work on your data, and even if you're changing your data, you don't need to do any changes in the pivot table or in the pivot chart. So automatically what will happen, it will pick the data's changes by just clicking on this refresh data source, and then what you can do, you can have the updated data set with you for the pivot chart and for the pivot table. It depends how you are changing your data, you are changing it or not, you are changing it on the daily basis, you are changing it after some time, so that depends. But the logic is already given here. You don't need to make a new chart every time. What you can do, you can just make a structure in initially, and if you are adding something, that will be part of the this insert table or insert whatever you have inserted here in the table as well as in the insert chart as well. Now the second case, what we can do, let me delete this and let's see, can we make pivot chart with a calculated field or not? So let me take here a calculated field. I'll go back to this pivot table, analyze, click on this field item, calculated field. So here, let me take another thing here. So let me take here text. This time let me take a text 6, and how I'm calculating it depending on the profit. This is my profit and I'm multiplying it with the 0.1. So this is my text 6. I'll add it and let me have this value text 6 and click on OK. So this is the text 6 now. So let me try a pivot chart with this sum of texts. So let me take that value. I'll go back again to the column only. I'm not selecting anything. By default, it has taken everything. So now you can see here we have this 0.1 value of the profit is also reflected here. Now you can see here sum of profit is given with the blue lines and sum of texts is given with this orange line. So the calculated field is also part of that pivot chart. Similarly, you can make part for the or make existence for the calculated item as well into the chart. Just you need to do what you need to do. You just need to click, and depending on that, you can set your conditions here. Pivot table, analyze, pivot chart. By default, it is coming. In fact, it is coming in the line as well. So in line, if we see how it is performing. So sum of profit is with the blue line, and the orange line we have sum of text 6. It is in the decline position because we just had the value as 0.1% of the profit. That is why it is coming like this. So if I change this value, so let me again change this value, pivot table, analyze. I'll go back to the calculated field. We have this text 6 here. I'll click on this text 6. So text 6 we will see, and what we can do, we can make any changes as well here, and in the changes, or let me make a new field here. Let me make a text 7, and I should have a value for the profit here, and we are having profit plus 1000 here. Click on add and then go to this text 7, click on OK. We have the value here. Now go back to this pivot chart. In the pivot chart, go to this line 1 and click on OK. Now here in the line 1, you can see something like this. Sum of profit is now very higher value, so you cannot see here, and we have the sum of text 7 as well there. So inserted field is also part of that pivot chart. So this is a calculated field, and again I'm repeating, this inserted or a calculated field is not part of your main data. It is not reflected your main data. It is just assigned or to a pivot table, and depending on any column it can be calculated.